Take a look at this mess. It is a disaster, but I am gonna do something very creative with this mess. I can't wait to show you, but in the meantime, I'm destined to live in this mess. Hi, I'm Di with Sister Chicks Quilting, and I have been living in this mess for the last couple of days, and I can't wait to show you what I'm going to make from it. Here's a big hint. Scrappy. Yes, Scrappy and Christmas. Those are the two hints. I think you're going to love it, and this is going to be something easy enough that you can do. You're going to love this video. This is how I ended up with this mess on my sewing table. Blue Block and I were coming home from quilt retreat, and she said, "So what are you going to do for your video next week?" To which I said, "Don't have a clue, but I want to do something Christmassy and scrappy." She was driving, so I started looking on the internet. I saw this string quilt that was a 6-pointed star, and I looked it up, and it had been foundation paper pieced, and I just thought, I've got to do something easier than that. I don't have the bandwidth to do paper piecing right now or to do foundation piecing. I have these two templates / rulers. Here, let me put this behind it so you can see. This is a 60-degree ruler, and this is my best friend during this quilt. Now, this one is 8.5 inches from this tip down to the bottom. This 60-degree is 5.5 inches from the tip of here down to the bottom of it. Well, I figured let's go big or go home. And I had no idea how big these triangle segments were going to be once I put them together, because I don't think that way. I just kind of do it. And that's what I did on this quilt. The only thing I knew was that I was not going to paper piece and I was not going to foundation piece. I didn't want to spend that much money on fabric for foundation piecing. So I thought, why don't I just sew strips together, press them, and starch them? Anybody can do that. This is one that I'm working on right now, but this is the piece that I really want to show you because look how long it is. Tip of my finger, you know the old yard measuring trick? Ta-da! It is a yard and almost a yard wide, but probably 3/4 of a yard. The important measurement here is that I can get 3 of these rulers cut out on this. So I decided, stop, cut, whatever it's going to take. I just wanted to pop in and tell you there's an alternate ending at the end of this video. Make sure you watch to the end because you're not going to want to miss it. And I'm going to starch it and cut them out using this template. That's exactly what I did. And I have to tell you, it's been working out so far. However, I'm making this quilt up as I go along. Sometimes that really gets me into trouble. There's a problem coming up that I don't know how to get through. We're just you're gonna have to see my brain in action, and I'm gonna do it on the video. Let's get started. I'm gonna aim the camera down and show you how I make these wonderful strips. I'll just put that one on the design wall for now, while I finish working on this one. The first thing I want to do is clean up some of this work area so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see, do I want to, ooh, I haven't seen this. See, that's what happens as you're moving things around. This one would work too. As you're moving things around, you run into pieces of fabric that you want to use. See, you're gonna want to see the sewing machine. This is my best friend, because right now I am just making pieces of fabric out of all these strips. And I'm going to put them on this. There's really no rhyme or reason to this. I just do what I think is going to look good. This is the last piece I did, this little snowman. I think I want to put this dark green next to him, but I haven't cut it yet. And I have a little trick. If something isn't quite the length, I cut it twice and sew it. So this is Scrappy. There's a whole bunch in there that is cut and sewn. I am going to mark this at 1 1/4 inches. And I know that this edge is fairly straight, because I just cut it. Now let's see if it's long enough. Oh, and it is. You know what piece I absolutely love? Look at the little tin soldiers. Now this piece is a vintage 90s and this one is not. I think they'll look great together. So I am just going to sew right sides together. I am sewing at a scant 1/4 inch on the edge of my presser foot. So I think that is darling. And I'm going to continue piecing this until it's about double wide. Now, if it's double wide and I can lay this on it, this is all the measuring I'm doing, guys, but I'm in for some measuring mess soon because I have to work on the background. I want this to be probably over to here, and that way I'll be able to get 3 pieces off of this because you go like this, and like that. So I'm going to continue doing this. All right, now the key to ironing this really, really good is steam. You're going to need to steam it, and I just press it all one way, like so. Now, I may have it a little easier than you if you don't have a Laura Star, because these Laura Star irons have got that dry steam on them because it's double heated. And I absolutely love the finishes I get with my Laura Star. So I run it this way a couple of times, give it a good burst of steam to get it laid down. Now I want it really stiff, so I'm just going to use some spray starch on it. And you know where I get my spray starch is the dollar store. Get it good and wet with the spray starch because I want it to have a crisp finish for this. While I'm pressing this down, I want to tell you about the 3 AMIGAS. The 3 AMIGAS are Tracy from the Sewing Channel, April from April's Craft Room, and myself. Our story is on our website, and that would be 3quiltamigas.com. Now, you want to put in the number 3, do not spell it out, and that will get you there. We've had an awful lot of requests for a quilt retreat, and we are having a quilt retreat April and May of 2025. And it's going to be in Hamilton, Missouri. Yes, home of the Missouri Star Quilt Company. But don't confuse us with that retreat. It's at a retreat center there, and all the details you'll find on the website. But I wanted to invite you to go check out our website, and if you think you want to come and sew with us, we'd love to have you. I have done a lot of retreats. I know what makes them fun. And this one is going to be a blast. Plus, there are so many prizes already, and we're still collecting prizes. But the number 1 biggest prize is the Juki TL18 QVP. It's a limited edition Juki, and it's got a retail value of $2,000. It's been generously donated by Juki Junkies, and we are so excited that they trusted us to give that away. So if nothing else, you should buy a ticket because you'll have a 1 in a 100 chance to win that sewing machine. This is done. This is crispy. There's loose threads on it, but I'm not going to worry about those right now. I'm going to take you to the next step. Okay, the first thing I want to do is raise my table to cutting height. I love my table. I'm going to make sure first that I have put enough fabric this way that I can get 2 rows of this template. And this is a low point right here, so it's going to go to about here. Just flip it over and it looks like I will get 2 rows. I want to cut it all at once. I'm going to lay them together. This is pretty even right here on this line. Yes, it is. And I'm going to lay that on one of the lines on my cutting mat, and I'm just going to trim the edge. You know what? When I put all my fabric away, I found a bunch of tools I didn't know I had. The lowest point on this was the green strip, and the ruler goes right next to the edge. Yep, a nice, clean, straight edge. Now let's take this edge off. And I have just squared up my fabric. My scrappy homemade fabric. Woo-wee. That looks great. I'm going to leave it this way. Put this down like so. Again, test. There's plenty of fabric for this, and I'm going to want to lay this like right on the edge to cut it. And if I use this ruler next to it, and then I'm going to do this, and there's still plenty of fabric. Oh, this is cool. I'm giving it 1 more 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to set this one aside and start on this bad boy. Isn't this fun? This is totally like I have been paper piecing or foundation piecing, but I haven't. So I'm pretty amped up about how easy this is to do. The first one I'm going to do is lay this right on the edge. Cut it like so. Turn it around and give it a slice right next to it. And then I'm going to cut the dog ears off. Ooh. Okay. There is 1. So how many do you think I can get out of this piece and that piece? I don't have a clue. I know I'm going to get 6. But if I can get 7, I'll do that. And I flip the ruler over and I'm laying it right on the cut edge and at the top of the dog ear, so I don't have to cut that dog ear again. Give it a slice, take off the dog ear, and there I go. So here is number 2, totally different from number 1. It's really easy because I am using crispy fabric that has been starched. That's why I wanted to starch it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these up, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing with these triangles, because I don't think you've guessed yet. Now, I might as well just throw this on the floor with the rest of them. But now that I have my fabric like this cut, I can get 18 triangles out of this piece. The other one, I got 10. The little one that I showed you, I just made 10. Let me show you what I'm making with them. I think you're going to like it. Ta-da! Oh, isn't that fun? Christmas is all about stars, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I think so. I have this one to put up, and then I'll show you my dilemma. So 1 more to go. Before we talk dilemmas, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. What do you think? I think it's very, very cool. Here is my dilemma. It's called background fabric. The one I saw on the internet, this is how they cut the background. They cut this out of the background. Then they cut this out of the background. Then they cut this, then this, then this. I don't want to do that. I think that is going to be a waste of my time. Oh, by the way, let me show you my background fabric. Isn't that cute? And this is called On Dasher. I want to have a big strip like so of background fabric. And of course, I will use my 60 degree triangle to cut it off so it fits this. And then I want to have another piece of fabric go this way to the end. I'm a little like, how do I do this? So I don't know if I want to go, I don't quite know how to measure for this, if I want this layout or not. This is not going to go on a bed. It's going to be a snuggle quilt. But I really thought we would do 2 stars, 1 star. I'm sorry, 2 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars. I think that's going to be a good fit. And what it's going to take is quilt math. It's going to take a lot of quilt math. I need to figure this out. There's no time like the present. I wish about 5 of you were in the shop with me so you could talk me off the cliff and through this process. But the next thing I need to do is get these strips ready, sew them on, because I can't complete the stars until the strips are on them. Get what I'm saying? Do I want to bring this a little closer? You know, I'm probably going to have to make another star and see how far it's going to go over here on this side. I better get going. But before I do, again, I want to invite you all to the 3 Amigas Quilt Retreat in Hamilton, Missouri. It's going to be so much fun. We've been collecting prizes, and just the prizes are going to be fun. Now, one thing I haven't told you about, there's going to be a VIP ticket, and there's only 20 of these VIP tickets, and they're almost sold out now. However, you could still get one if you want. They do cost extra, but they're going to have some extra special prizes in them. Plus, there's going to be a reception with goodies off site, but still in Hamilton. You'll get to hang out, play games, visit, chat, ask any question you want with any of the 3 Amigas, and get some marvelous prizes. It's going to be so much fun. That's just another little thing about the quilt retreat. All right, I took about an hour off from the sewing room because I was stymied as to how to proceed, how to lay out this quilt. I called the engineer in. He came up and he said, well, you're going to use a ton of the background if you don't squish it together, and then it's going to be a gigantor quilt. This is the layout that we came up with. I'm going to go 3 across, 2 in the middle, and 3 across the bottom. Let me tell you how I'm going to proceed, because, oh, it's going to be a lot of work. I'm not going to get this done until tomorrow, I can tell you that. I'm going to construct this row by row. So you know I have this sewn together. That's a row. This is going to be row 1. This is row 2 all the way across. This is row 3. And then this guy is row 4. And how I'm going to do it is measure. How it's set up now, the quilt is about 91 inches wide by 96 inches long. That's a big old queen size quilt. It's huge, and I wanted to make this a snuggle quilt. Right now, I'm debating condensing everything together. You know what I could do is put the pieces together like this, and it wouldn't be such a huge beast. Now, understand that this star on the end is going to be a complete row. Just my design wall is not so big. And the problem would be these bottom rows, because they would, oh my gosh, I just don't know how that's going to be, you guys. Let's see how it looks. I think I really need the spacing. Hope you don't mind me talking with pens in my mouth. I would certainly use less background that way. Would that mean I have to do this? I think it would. Let's stand back and take a look at this. Gosh, I just don't know. You know what I'm going to have to do? Because I told you that this quilt is Patricia's. I'm going to have to call her and see what she wants. Okay, I have the word. And the word is she likes it this way. It's going to be a snuggle quilt, not to go on a bed, so we don't need a gigantic or queen size quilt, which is going to save a lot of fabric, which is a good thing. What I am going to do, because it is a square quilt, I'm going to add 4 inches to the top, 4 inches to the bottom, and only 2 inches to the sides. I think I need to get busy. Oh, by the way, Blue Block really likes the bits of blue in it. She loves blue. It's a snowy snowman color in winter, so I think it totally works. Do you want to join me at the sewing machine? I'm ready to sew. What you can't see because it's off camera is that I have these lined up in order, ready to go on these 2 rows. And remember, I cut the dog ear corners off? This is why. So I can use them to match the fabric too. So this is the first corner I need to do, or the first seam I need to do. And I'm going to lay it out. It fits perfect. I've got these sides done. They're all really straight. Now, I'm going to just sew them at a full 1/4 of an inch. I am not going to do the scant, which is my MO. So I'm at the 1/4 inch mark on my sewing machine. And I'll show you what I do. I'm using these tweezers as a stiletto because I haven't packed my bag from Quilt Retreat yet. So there's a little piece there. And then I open it up and it's perfect, except I sewed it wrong. Oh dear, this goes this way. I actually had it laid out wrong. So you're gonna see me unpick. It's not gonna take long. While I'm unpicking, I'm going to let you know more about the 3 AMIGAS Quilt Retreat. This company is stepping up. Caterpillar. So we have Juki Junkies, Caterpillar. The swag bags are going to have a lot of online stores. They're just going to be fun. There's going to be all kinds of goodies in. I'm done. Can't believe I did. How embarrassing, right? You really need to go to the website to check it out because there's so many details like everything from the shuttle service, from the airport. If you're flying, you're going to be flying into the Kansas City airport. That's the one I'm flying into. Here I go again, right on the 1/4 inch line on my sewing machine. I am going to press these seams open. Give it a little shot. With all the side seams that I have in there, I just feel like it's going to be less bulky. Give it a good shot of steam. Look how nice it lays with that good shot of steam. And press this side seam open. Pressing is the key. Let's get a good press on it. And then this last seam should be pretty easy. The hardest part is getting your fingernail down there and opening them up. It's easier though because I've done a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. Give it some Laura Star magic. So it goes flat as a pancake. Oh, geez. You know what that means? I have to fill my reservoir. I happen to have a big jug of tap water right here. There, now it's ready to go again because the Laura Star uses tap water. I just changed my filters. You change the filters about 3 times a year. Being a heavy user like I am. Look at that. Isn't that nice? It's going to be so easy to sew it together on a row now that it's just so flat. This is my background fabric, and I'm cutting it in 8.5-inch strips. So my triangle ruler fits on it nicely with a little tiny bit of room. Now about this fabric, it is directional. There's little tiny red and green, like Christmas / pine trees on it. Here, I'm gonna hold it up so you can see it. And it's directional. The engineer said, look, it is so tiny, I don't think it's going to matter. And you know what? It turns out he is right. After all, he is an engineer, right? As long as they're both going vertical, they're gonna be okay. If I were to turn one horizontal, like this and this, that would not work out. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I do know what I'm gonna do when I put the borders on, because I'm gonna border it in this. It's easy to cut borders all going the same way. I am gonna cut 2 sheets of this, or 2, actually 4 layers, and I have the longer selvage on this side, so I'm gonna flip it over so I know where that selvage is. So I'm going to use this end here. I guess I could walk around the table. I want to make sure it is perfectly square on here. I have a situation. I don't have a pattern. I don't want to take measurements from here to here because it's maybe not accurate. This is what I'm looking at. Pay attention to this piece right here. It's a background piece. By the way, don't you think the background pieces look good in here? I get one. Here's what I'm looking at. 5 triangles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think I've come up with a solution that's going to work to fit this piece. Here on these pieces, I have 2. So 1, 2. Buckle my shoe, right? That should be easy to do. There's no seam allowance in any of these triangles because I'm going to cut it to fit. Let me show you how I'm going to measure it. Do you see this marvelous little background piece? Let me show you how I use the ruler because that's important. First off, again, this is 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to put this one up here so you can look at my beautiful work of art while I make a second one. On the first one, I am going to mark my just going to trace it. And I'm going to mark my seam allowance. Now this is the sewing guide right here, the dotted line, and the seam allowance is right here. I'm going to go straight down from the seam allowance and make a little dash. Then I'm going to slide the ruler up a snitch and make a little dash. On this seam allowance side, it comes over and it forms a little corner. I'm going to come right down and mark that corner. Flip my ruler. Put this top right here, right along the edge of the fabric, so I don't have to cut it. And where I'm going to mark it is, well, it's already marked. The seam allowance side is there's a little niche with this pin right there. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom and look at it and see that I did a pretty good job of lining it up because this corner matches with that little nick that I made. And there's another nick that I made, and I'm tracing that little bit off. And then guess what I'm gonna do? Flip that pup. Again, I want to find this stitching line. Now I'm lining the edge of my ruler with the top of my fabric here. So I only have to cut it once. You know what? There's already a line here. I just need to slide this up a little, keeping it in place so I can make a little nick on the top of this piece. I've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna flip my ruler and make 4. Now I'm gonna line the top of the ruler up, line it right next to my fabric. I'm going to put this corner, and this again, this corner I'm using is the seam line, not the seam allowance. So here's the outside of the rulers, the seam allowance. So I'm lining up seam line to seam line, and there I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the next one is going to be 5. Isn't this slick? Then I'm gonna flip my ruler. I'm gonna line this seam line up with this seam line. And if you match these two corners and you're moving it like this, you're going to get this in the right place if these two corners are in the right place, because this is an equilateral triangle. All sides are the same. That was my Laura star saying, hey, I'm here, making sure I have that nice steam when I... Oh, you know what? I don't have to mark it. I am just going to lay this ruler with this line right next to the fabric, and then I'm going to trace it. This piece, by the way, should fit right on top of this piece. Oh, baby, and it does. So now I'm going to cut it out. And then I'm going to do some stitching. And I'm going to sew this row together. I don't know if you can see it very well because this is cream, but I'm going to set that up there and set this up here. Then I'm going to sew them together, and on the end I'm going to need 2 pieces, which are left over on the ends. So I just have to go through that process again. You know, I told you that this one was a 2 triangle piecer. So I cut this out and I put it up here, and guess what? It's not. It's a 3 piecer that's gonna have to be trimmed. My scraps aren't gonna make it. I'm just gonna cut some more. I started to put up the background pieces, and I was getting confused and even more confused. It was not working. So I sat down and made a list, row by row, of what I need for each one. For the top row, I need a 3-fer or one that has 3 of these pieces. I need it to be oriented in this position. I had too many of the single triangles cut out, so I'm actually sewing those. And I'm gonna sit at my machine, sew those up, and then start sewing all of the triangles in this so I can finish it tonight. Do I dare? It's midnight. I don't know, we'll see. But I just ate some dinner for the first time today, so maybe it'll carry me through. Who knows? I know, terrible habits. Here I go, sewing away. I want to share 3 tips to help you construct better rows so you don't have to do the unpicking that I've had to do. But in my defense, I am doing this without a pattern and shooting from the hip, which I'm kind of famous for in my own right. And when you do that, you have problems like I've had. Here's tip number 1. Make sure you're aware of the left and the right before you cut. Each of these triangles has a left side and a right side. And if you notice, this piece butts up on the right, while this piece butts up on the left. So pay attention to lefts and rights. There's a lot of points on this because we're sewing on a triangle. And they all come together right here or right here. What does that equal? Bulk. Here's what I've been doing when I sew the triangles together and this. Before I sew this one on here, I'm going to flip this one over and open the seam. So I'm going to finger press my seams open. So here I'm going to make sure that's down. I'm going to finger press on this side, making sure I don't stretch the fabric. And then I'm going to take this piece that goes there, flip it over so it's right sides together, and I'm going to line up my ends just like that, making sure that everything matches. This has been a joy to sew, by the way, because everything is matching so well. I am being very anal about my seam allowances. I've unpicked a few seams, and you really only need 2 pins in to hold it. Then I'm going to take it to the machine and at 1/4 of an inch sew this seam, and I'm done. So that should help you when you're making your rows. I have 2 rows here. This is row number 6. This is row number 7. I have my trusty pin cushion, and you cannot sew this together unless you pin it, because we're talking points here. Points, points, points. Okay? So I'm going to flip this on top and start pinning it together, showing you how I do it. Here's the point right here where the threads cross. So I'm going to stick a pin in here and lay it across so it's kind of even. Then I'm going to go through the right where the seam is, making sure it works on the back too. If you flip this pin over and stick it in, the fabric is going to move and this bottom piece is going to slide off. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick the pin in like so. I haven't showed this for a while, but I like this method. It's how you get perfect points. Then what you do is you stick a pin in right next to it and a pin right on the other side of it, just like that. So I'm going to come and find that point. It's right here. So I'm sticking a pin in it right there. And then I'm going to make sure it hits the back side right on the seam. You want those to line up. This would really look gross. Well, it just wouldn't look matchy-matchy. So then I'm going to go, here, I'll put it this way so you can see. You pin right next to it, making sure that pin is down in place. And you do the same on this side. Pin right next to that pin. See how I've done that? And you know what I do with this? I kind of leave it in the fabric, just kind of hanging. And then when I sew, just when I get about here on the seam line, I pull it out, but not until then. And you know what? You may think that this is a pain in the butt, but I do it anyway because I want mine to look perfect. If you want to line these up, you can go ahead and line these up, stick a pin in there, and then I'm going to go down to the end and pin it as well. Okay, I'm sewing right along the 1/4 inch line. And on my machine, it's right here. In fact, the stiletto's going down that little line. So it's just a smidgen off of my presser foot. You definitely want to sew at a full 1/4 inch. Now I'm coming up on one of those, and first I'm going to take the center pin out because I have these 2 side pins holding the piece together. I'll take this one out. I should have gotten that point perfectly, but I don't know until I see and flip the piece over. Let me do a little bit more, and I'll open one up. Okay, so there's the center piece out, or the center, what's it called? The center pin. That one's out. And that one's out. This is why it's good to sew with the stiletto, because all of these pieces, all these little seams are here where this fabric is sewn together. So I'm using my stiletto to make sure everything goes down in the order it was pressed in. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to finish the whole row, but after this point, I'm going to flip it over and show you. And we'll see how good my method is. And I'm just going to lay my points right down here. Check it out. Look at that point. Boom. And look at this point. Can you see that? Right here. Dude, that method, you want to use it. Okay, this one is a snitch off, but in looking at it, I'm not going to go back and make it perfect because this is a white right here. This is white. This is a lighter color. This is a lighter color, so it's not going to show. So you can't be, boy, if that were red and black, or I definitely fix it. Now I'm going to pick up right where I left off. I'm trimming the edges off this quilt. I don't love this ruler because it's slippery, but I need it because it's long. So I'm using my Quilter Select as a base to hold it into place because this one grips. Lining everything up as much as I can. This is actually a pretty straight quilt. Well, here you go. I'm really excited about this quilt. You know, it all started when Patricia and I were coming home from our retreat, and she said, "What are you going to do next week?" And I'm like, I don't have an idea. I just want to do something scrappy and Christmassy. And I think I accomplished it. Don't you agree? I want to give you a few takeaways about this quilt, and then remind you about my retreat that's coming up in Hamilton, Missouri. The number one takeaway is no matter how much fabric you think you're going to plow through, it's not going to make a dent. Your fabric is going to grow and grow and grow. Can you believe this? I thought I'd made such a dent in this Christmas fabric. I don't think I even touched it. This bag is stuffed full of strips that I had cut. The rest of this fabric is going back to Blue Block. You see, she and I are both very sentimental. And about 70% of this fabric came from her mother-in-law, who's passed on, and it is 90s retro fabric. She also has a bunch in here that is left over from making of her grandchildren's Christmas stockings, which we figured out is also retro 90s fabric. And then a little tiny bit of it is from my stash, and I'm ready to pass it on. I picked it up in 2010. So she's going to be the keeper of the Christmas scrappy fabric, and if she wants to come up with a quilt, I bet she will. She'll do something with it, I'm sure. Oh, I wanted to let you know about the measurement of this quilt. It's 81 by 80, almost square. I guess I blew it, but she and I don't like square quilts. So as soon as my order comes, because I went online to get some more background fabric, I am going to border this quilt. The sides are going to have a 2-inch finished border, and the top is going to have a 5-inch finished border cut in half for 2.5-inch finished, and this is going to float in the middle of the top and the bottom. So I made these strips that are wide enough that the top and the bottom will be longer, and the quilt won't be square, but it'll probably be about 12 inches longer than the width, which I like that idea. And yes, I'm definitely going to show you when I get it all quilted and put together. I've got the backing and the binding right here. I might as well show those to you. So Blue Block picked out this red and white snowflake for the backing, which is going to be a lot of fun. It's definitely going to be a winter quilt. She didn't know I had the binding, and she picked out this candy cane binding. It will work, maybe not as good as this one will work, but once I get the quilt quilted, we'll make sure we audition and get a good binding on it so she can use it by Christmas. Now, I don't want you to forget about the 3 Amigas quilt retreat. We 3 Amigas are so excited about this retreat, and I have been talking to vendors and quilt shops, and oh, you're not going to believe the prizes. There's tickets for 100 quilters, and we're not going to be packed in. This venue is 7,200 square feet. It is pretty dang cool. You are going to like it. I'm hoping that you come and spend some time with us 3 Amigas. The link for the retreat is going to be in the description box down below. Thank you so much for checking in. Thank you for buying me cups of tea. Thank you for watching my channel, commenting, and subscribing. I appreciate you all so much. So there I was editing this video, and I was almost done with my part when ding dong, the mailman came, and guess what was in it? If you guessed the background to this quilt, you're absolutely right. Well, I couldn't resist. So I ran upstairs, cut up the fabric, and this is the final product. Why don't you join me on the design wall over here so you can see? Because I think it deserves a ta-da! I'm so excited about this quilt. What do you think of the border on the top and on the bottom? And it adjusted the length so it's longer than it is wider. And you know what? I think Blue Block and Mr. Blue Block are going to have no problem snuggling under this quilt. I'm going to get it quilted and show it to you probably in the next couple of videos. I just can't wait. There I was, gazing at my work, so excited about it. Do you see what I see? Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe I had done this and that I let it go so far. I know some of you out there were going, turn the block, die, die, turn the block. Yes, 2 blocks I put in backwards, and I'm going to point them out because I'm going to fix them before I quilted. So they are right here and here. So I'm going to unpick them, fix them before I quilt it, because I could never live with myself. Now I would like to thank all of you who watch my channel, all of you who subscribe. For those of you who don't subscribe, I would love it if you would. I will keep putting out quality videos like this just for you because they're fun and we have a great time together, right? And one last thing, don't forget to check out the website, and don't forget to check out the website for the 3 Amigas. It is the number 3 quiltamigas.com. 3quiltamigas.com, and you will find all the information you need to join us for our retreat. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.